Welcome everybody to another episode of Lostlikemike. I am your host, Mike Gonzalez. Got a brand new shirt. The thing about thrift store finds is that you never know, sometimes you don't know what the design is from, but it's got this really wicked looking bird on it. So I'm already starting off talking about silly things. Anyway, thank you everybody for your positivity, your support. Please continue to like and share and to put comments, and thank you for emailing me at lostlikemike@gmail.com. I kind of would like some people to put some comments about whether or not I should stop paying for a website. Is a website something that people need anymore, as far as like a central landing page location, where you'd find, I don't know, just a link back to your podcast channels that you're going to go to anyway, YouTube and Spotify, which, by the way, you can find this and other episodes for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as Google Podcasts, YouTube, as obviously if you found us here. One thing, I was floating around with the different podcast channels, and I landed on, I think it was Spotify, one of them, and inadvertently I hit a ×2 button, which doubled the speed of my voice. And if anybody's familiar with NPR, that's a Texas Public Radio, but I think that's a nationally syndicated radio but anyway, Hourglass, I sound like Hourglass. It's very funny. I mean, I think it makes it all the more funny because I speak really quickly in sort of a little bursts of cadence, the way that Hourglass speaks. You'll get a kick out of it if you go check it out. And it cuts the podcast in half. So I know I've spoken to some people, friends and acquaintances and people that I associate with, and that aren't really familiar. There's no one way to enjoy a podcast, but typically a lot of folks like to listen to them on commutes or in situations where they're stuck, and they need some stimuli when they're driving or otherwise occupied. So there's no right way to listen to the podcast. I appreciate you trying to listen to the podcasts. If you listen to them in little bursts, 10 minutes, 5 minutes here, just checking in, hanging out. It's really a loose form of conversation. Even if it's just me talking to myself, it's a glimpse into somebody's consciousness, in my opinion, what this seems to be. And on my end, I feel like I'm talking to somebody, so it's okay if on occasion you step in and out of the conversation. It's fine with me. Anyway, but thank you for all the comments and all of the kind words and all of the encouragement. I appreciate that very much. Again, with the housekeeping, I switched the category of the podcast from health and fitness to comedy. And please allow me to explain the logic. So a friend of mine suggested that I switch it to comedy. He said he laughed several times, which is kind. I never like to, I don't have any plugged in jokes that I have ready to go or anything like that. But here's my logic. So if there was 2 points on a line, one was an authority of medicine and all things wellness and being healthy and what to do to be healthy, etc. And on the other side was a comedian, a full-on comedian, like stand-up comedian or, improvisational comedian or, comedic actor, etc. Somebody was a pro over here. And then a doctor or guru or whatever on this side. As far as I am from being a comedian, I'm still hella closer to that side than I am a medical authority. So for that reason, I changed my designation to a comedy podcast, because they really don't have any sort of category for what I do. And I don't know if, that's a good or bad thing, but we can get into that in more depth or whatever. I don't want to get too meta about what I'm trying to do or even though that's kind of essentially what this is, but I don't really want to talk it to death what I'm trying to do anymore. I just want to get to it and hang out and have fun doing it. So that being said, we can move on. I still want to talk about all different types of things, serious and otherwise, whatever's on my mind. If it happens to get a chuckle out of you, cool. If you spend 40 minutes going, staring at the video or looking at the speakers of whatever device you're listening to and thinking, like, why is this guy so down? It's just going to be a true representation of what's on my mind at the time. So I'm hoping that it'll be an equal balance of light and heavy, there was a quote, and it goes like this. If you want to tell people the truth, you'd better make them laugh or they'll kill you. I originally, in my mind, I attributed it to Bob Hope. For you younger folks, he was a comedian back in the vaudeville days, very long time ago. But I wasn't 100% sure, and I wanted to attribute it to the correct person, so I did a little hardcore research, which translates to I googled where this quote came from, and it turned out to be a whole thing, man. So everywhere I looked, Oscar Wilde was attributed to it, and you can have a little conversation about it in the comments if you feel so inclined. I like it how I have this imaginary audience that's, if y'all would like to have a discussion about it in the comment section, the multitudes of you there in the comment section, should start off with the following. So Oscar Wilde is attributed many times to have been the one who said it. And I forget the context of how he said it, but there was one investigation or one section where I found that there was actually George Bernard Shaw in it was in an article in 1951. He died in 1950, right? So he was a playwright and a political activist, and he wrote like 60 plays from like the 1880s to like when he died, 1950. According to my Google research, because that's 70 years. So I think Google's messing with me. But you come here for the facts, don't you? So you can tell people at parties that with very a lot of confidence that you learn some things. But anyway, point being, in 1951 there was this this article where he stated that phrase, and in the investigation they were talking about all these references to different plays that were circulating around that time period, to where he kind of could have paraphrased it himself and could have picked it up off of. And the same with Oscar Wilde. So the idea behind it was more important than all of this, which was with every serious thing that you want to talk to people about, if you want to share something that's heavy, you need to wrap it up in a bow, a little bit of sugar, because people won't, for the most part, they don't want to hear it. It got me thinking about myself, trying to put myself in the position of a listener, right? So a lot of times on a given day, I'm not looking for answers from the things around me. This is hard to say. So I'll try it again. often enough I'm looking for distractions. I'm trying to get out of my mind or away from the any sort of anxiety or things that are going on in my mind. I call it chasing the silence, because when you're in a moment of quiet, then the intrusive thoughts come in, and inevitably you find yourself in the midst of a panic attack, or like a of needing an escape. So my point being that I don't, as a listener, do I want to go somewhere and be reminded of those intrusive thoughts? And the answer is sometimes I want somebody to talk to me about it, and somebody to share their experiences. But also sometimes I just want to be entertained and I want to feel good, and I don't want to be reminded of the things that I'm going through, right? So with that spirit in mind, I do want to offer a bit of escapism for those that need it. I sometimes need it too. So in all fairness, I'll try to walk that line a little bit. So that being said, I'm thinking about dyeing my beard, everybody. And it's a very polarizing topic, the idea of dyeing my beard, which is funny. And I know nobody cares. It's not the point. I'm saying, people in my close circle, like my wife and things, my daughter, they've expressed their opinions about me dyeing my beard. I remember I would broach the subject with friends, colleagues, coworkers, and I just always remember that their opinions were always very, very strong. No, you can't do that, and then all these reasons, and then, or I think that'd be pretty cool, The people that are like, you should never do that, it only makes me want to do it more, because I know it just seems so petty, so simple. It's a temporary dye, I've been having white in my beard since my daughter's first surgery. She's 7 now, and she's been having surgery since she was 6 months old. And I struggle, as a parent, even when my son was prematurely born, I had never imagined when a child is born, you feel all this attachment and love, and instantaneously there's this human being that you would die or kill for. It just happened so fast. But in your wildest dreams, you can never imagine the instantaneous terror that you feel in your heart when the prospect of anything happening to them comes into your mind. It's this new terror, this new anxiety that you never expected. Also, side note, if I go off camera, I'll edit them out, but I either have allergies or COVID. I mean, that's just what I hear all the time, people saying that they either have COVID or allergies, but I say that right in this moment. I don't mean to sidetrack, but I felt a sneeze coming on, and I was going to dip out of the camera view and sneeze. So I was trying to preempt it. It's like staring at the lights that I have set up. Which, by the way, I need somebody to come over and teach me how to set up lights. Just a side note. Where was I? Okay. Yeah, so it's not in my notes, but I wasn't planning on talking about this, but when there's medical emergencies involving your children, all of a sudden things are everything comes into this weird morbid focus, and it's a horrible feeling. And I wasn't there when my son was put under. I was working, but I was misinformed that it wasn't going to be a situation where he was going to be put under. But I never forgive myself for not being there on that day. And what I found was when I went with when my daughter had her surgery, first of all, you age like years being there. And this little being that trusts you with everything, you have to try to explain to them without them being able to comprehend that the nurses that are poking at them and the people that are strapping things to them, and that it's all going to be okay, and that we're allowing it for a reason. And it's just an awful feeling. So anyway, every time she goes under, I seem to get more definition of white in my beard. And, but I also noticed that it makes you prematurely feel older than you are. And I'm not saying I'm a spring chicken, but I am saying that personally, I just would like to look in the mirror and not see a white, just one, and if only temporarily, and it's my prerogative to do so, and I think that I'm going to do it. But I just figured I'd bring it up to look for some alternate perspectives and see what people thought about it for fun. So comment and let me know what you think. All right, let's go to some updates. I did want to get into some of those updates. I lost a few pounds. I'm pretty excited about that. The dieting is going great as far as like counting the calories. I've never had a problem with that. There's some great apps out there. MyFitnessPal is one. And you just put in what you eat and it does the math for you, and you stay under a certain number. But the trick is to compound that with working out. So I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine about circadian rhythms and how I'm in it. My day job right now is a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And I should be getting into patterns. I have a lot of extracurriculars that I'm trying to do. Music and writing and podcasting, of course. So the trick is to set up a schedule and stick to it. Okay. I mean, you got one school of thought, like your Navy SEAL Jocko Willink and like your Mark Wahlbergs that swear by waking up at the crack of dawn, 4 or 5 in the morning, knocking out your workouts, and then getting your day started. And so that's one way of going about doing it. And another is just kind of banging it out at night and then going to bed at a reasonable hour and then getting up in the morning, accomplished having done what you needed to do. I don't know. I get a lot of my anxiety at night and a lot of restlessness. So I think I might edge towards that. The only problem is doing a lot of the louder stuff like the boxing or like the clanking of the weights outside or whatever it is. I don't know. We'll have to cross that bridge, but yeah, I tried it a couple times, waking up in the morning. I have to get up early for work anyway, but between the anxiety at night and not getting to sleep, and I have this watch that tells me how many hours of sleep I get, and it's tied directly into not doing good. Anyway, and then the quality of sleep is a big deal because, so one of the things that I mentioned in the earlier episodes was the possible sleep apnea, which I don't have an extreme case of, they said it's really light, so I just have to lose some weight and it'll probably all be fantastic, right? But in the interim, I, like many Americans, snore. And for that reason, so my wife wakes up in the middle of the night and, we're not going to get into whether or not she snores, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I have no problem. She does her bit. But she wakes up to my snoring, and so she'll say, "Hey, bud, you're snoring." Obviously, I'm not, because you woke me up and I'm looking at you in the eyes. But it's so hard for me to fall asleep. I got into this thing where I would get up and I'd go to the guest room. And it's not so much a guest room. This is the guest room. It's basically a do-all room, right? So I got my musical equipment in here. I got my podcasting equipment in this room, and I had a bed. And I figured I had a bright idea one day. I said, I'm going to have a bright idea. I'll get rid of this big, super comfortable bed, and I'll get this little futon so I could have more room for activities. And the futon is wicked uncomfortable. It is just torture. And of course, I was contemplating and nervous that I had COVID, right? We talked about that for a quick second. So I've been banished to this room anyway, because a few days ago, the worry was that I was contagious. So obviously I don't look like I'm super sick right now, but the point was that the first night that I got the bed, I had a really horrible night. I justified it by saying that maybe the stiffness would be good for my back. Like they say, lay on the floor. I tried it, and it was awful. No other way to put it. So I got some of those egg carton things, some additional layers of cushion. The next night, just a few degrees less of awful. Still second cousins with awful, but it was not as bad, but certainly not what I pictured. And that's where I'm at right now. Already, going to bed late because I'm trying to do projects, or I'm doing second jobs. And then on top of that, not getting quality sleep. It's just been a thing. Like I almost was tempted not to do the podcast today because I had maybe 2-3 hours of sleep, and it's been consistent for a couple of days. But because of obligations surrounding the next couple of days, I said I have to do it today. And so I'm here right now with y'all. But just to put it in perspective, my dog does this thing at night. Sweet golden retriever girl, female dog, very sweet, but very needy. So she'll come up on the bed and she'll lay down and she'll whine. Doesn't matter what time of night. When I'm there, she says, "Hey, you're home," just to remind you, you're not going to bed yet. And so I have to pet her for a certain amount of time before we have an agreement. Either I'll get tired of petting and I'll complain to the point where she'll say, "Okay, cool, I'll just go lay down at your feet." Or I pet her till she's done and she goes and lays at my feet. Right. Anyway, she jumps on this futon. She lays down for a second, starts whining. I start petting her. And then she just said, "Nope," and got up and walked out of the room and never came back again. So that was a direct clue that the bed was not comfortable. If my dog, who sleeps on the floor, was like, "I'm out, fend for yourself, I'm gonna go find a spot." Yeah, it's bad. But I'm gonna figure it out. I'll do something. I'll get some more egg cartons. Looking into some things. But I'm only 5 pages left in my children's book to illustrate, and it's done. Just like podcasting or anything in life, it's a struggle each step is a learning process and each step is a struggle. From ISBN numbers to barcodes to self-publishing or finding a literary agent or going through normal traditional publishing channels. I mean, editors and illustrators and the do's and don'ts of formatting for ebooks and Amazon, and it's been a lot to go through to figure out and to try to to get this project done. I'm determined. I've decided to self-publish because they say that you lose control of the creative aspects of the book. And really, I feel like it's at the same stage as the music industry was circa the 90s, where traditional record label approaches to selling music was kind of in question, and there was a lot going on. And I feel like that's kind of already been happening in the literary world. I mean, in all of the 5 minutes I've spent in the literary world. But I'm just saying, I read a lot of these articles, I'm trying to research, and a lot of these traditional authors in their advice columns, and they just sound so cynical and so bitter so often. Maybe y'all can direct me to better avenues to research, but they always just seem like most likely nobody will take a look at your manuscript. If they do, they're going to want to control the artwork, and they're going to want to find you an illustrator. So don't even bother with your drawings and whatever. If you're not a pro, then don't even bother. Stuff like that. And I just feel like in the day and age where there's outlets and avenues and platforms for people to do just about anything creatively, independently, it just seems archaic to say that we would be dependent on these traditional avenues of publishing. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love to be a published author, but on a labor of love that I would rather look for authorities, as I said in previous podcasts. I'd rather look for professionals, like a professional artist or designer, and if y'all have any suggestions, please message me, email me, what have you. To go over my artwork, my illustrations, so they could point out, oh, you shouldn't have 6 fingers on this guy, kind of like spot the bad stuff, you know what I mean? Like, I am the first to admit that I do the best that I can. I'm having fun doing it, but I would love to have somebody who maybe does it for a living. For example, I've never formatted a book. I'm following these YouTube tutorials and, doing the best that I can. But again, I'm not so arrogant to think that I know all things about this. I don't, even with all of the research that I've done. I would love to have authorities in marketing and to come help me promote the book and to get it to live up to its potential. One thing that I did decide, because the characters, the main character is based on my daughter. And although it's not mentioned in the book, and there's no reference to it in terms of the subject matter. Recently, my daughter's been it's been discovered that she has dyslexia, and let me tell you something. There's no human being on this planet that is more creative than my daughter, in my eyes. She has revitalized my sense of creativity and wonder. She has such a strong vision for what she's looking for when she sees a canvas or a piece of paper, or he says it's time to do some type of art, whatever medium it is, chalk on the sidewalk, whatever it is. Before she touches anything, there's a clear vision, and it's just uncanny to watch. She'll already have everything in her mind of what she wants to do. But I've never seen a child struggle with a learning disability, and it's daunting, and it's something, and I've done a lot of again with the Google research, but obviously I've looked into it to try to help her in any way that I can, but there's just a way that her mind connects the letters, and she sees the things, and it's going to be something that's going to be very difficult for her to sort of get past. And from what I understand, it's like a good with the bad. You struggle with certain aspects of the way that your mind makes connections, but your mind also is capable of seeing things in ways that other people don't. So it's not all bad. I'm just saying that here I am writing a book, right, with words on pages, and the main character, the inspiration for it, that is, I want her to enjoy it in the fullest extent that she possibly can. So I got to thinking that I started going to scientific studies and stuff regarding helping dyslexic readers and the things that they do to help them. And I've decided that I'm going to curate this book and tailor it as much as physically possible to make it the easiest for her to read. And hopefully other children that maybe that struggle with some of those learning disabilities or specifically dyslexia. From the colors of the pages, they're scientific, or I say scientific, they did studies where they used particular fonts, certain size fonts, certain spacing between the letters. I just wanted to cover all aspects that I physically possibly can. I've spoken to one organization locally, and I'm gonna touch base with some in Austin as well. I'm gonna try to work in collaboration with them to help me, point me in the right direction to whatever literature or whatever resources to help me make this book the best that I possibly can for her, and probably ultimately a series of books. Her character's name is Pinky Puppy, and she's basically this little girl who experiences life and all things, but you always know that she's got her imagination hat on because she's pretending to be a puppy living life. Like before she even gets to do anything, she's already pretending she's a puppy doing whatever the next thing is. My daughter was doing that for quite a long time. Even to this day, she'll occasionally say that she's Pinky, and right? That's how it all started. I got a kick out of this Pinky Puppy doing these other things, but so yeah, I'm gonna have this series of books, and so far she's liking it and she's enjoying it, but I want her to see the finished product with the and do test pages and stuff and see what helps her the most. So that's where I am with that. I'm working on that. And that's another reason why self-publishing is kind of where it's at for me, because I don't want a literary agent or a publisher to tell me that they're going to pick the art and they're going to pick the fonts and they control all that. So I have a plan and it's going to work out, but you know, that's kind of where it's at. I did investigate all of the settings, you know, the ideas of publishing, and I don't want it to come off as if I'm afraid of rejection, because I got plenty of that when I was out of a job. And so yeah, I got good at that. So I could totally do that. I have no fear in sending my book out to 100 people and having it, you know, the 80-20 rule, and having it shot down 80 times. But so it's not about that. It's just that I want, it goes back to the other problem that I have, which is control issues. So chalk that up to that. I'm also having the challenge of marketing, more specifically social media marketing. What content do you put where? Do you post on TikTok or Instagram? You obviously don't put the same thing you put on Facebook as you do Instagram. How often do you do it? Once a day, once a week? Do you put stories? What stories do you tell about? You know, when do you film these stories? When do you have time? Anyway, I am looking for somebody that would help me with regard to that. So, because like, I think one of the stories I want to do is regarding the book. Just kind of walking through. If you saw me do one page of art, it is such a struggle. And I see these artists, you ever see them, especially on TikTok, and not the time lapse ones. I'm not naive. I know that it's sped up over, you know what I mean? I'm talking about the ones that do like a piece very quickly, you know. That's not me. It takes me a very long time, obviously, to do every page. And my wife's actually the art director. She oversees the art right now. She's very artistic, and it's where I think that my daughter really gets it from, because I've always been kind of blown away by my wife's creativity. She's very good at decorating, very good at she could spin a story. She's one of the few people that she would tell a story, and I'm, you know, as far as like tell my daughter a story or what have you, and could surprise me with the direction that she takes it in. But that being said, so she'll come over and she'll say, you know, her head's too big, or what's wrong with that hand? It looks like there's something wrong with that hand. Fingers don't do that. You know, that kind of stuff. And it's pushed the art to another level, I will admit. And when I say that I want to hire a professional, it's not to undermine or to denigrate her efforts or her abilities. It's just, none of us have published a children's picture book with illustrations. So I would love to have somebody who has. Kind of go through the art and see what they think. And that being said, when I do finish the book, I would love to have some beta readers. I would love to have some folks that are interested in giving me an honest, objective opinion about the book. And if you're interested in doing that, I would love to hear from you. Just either in the comments or what have you, say beta reader or whatever, or mention the beta reading. if you might be interested in that, so that I may, share it with you. And it obviously wouldn't be a finished book, but we could go through the pages. I could send you some pages and we can talk about it. Okay. So I did go back over some of there hasn't been a ton of episodes, but I talked about a sense of not finding meaning in your day-to-day life, to feel like there's no reason for doing things, no purpose or no value. But I never would say the concept or what it was. And I knew it, but I was lazy. I couldn't remember it, and I was going to research it. But there was a word that I was trying to find, and that was nihilism. And so I'm bringing it up today just to clarify, to talk about it a little bit, because it was bothering me that I mentioned it probably every episode of the idea of there is meaning, and sometimes we feel like there's not. And if nothing matters, then what's the point of doing anything, right? And that's the premise, the central idea of nihilism. Then there's different types of, there's moral nihilism. I had them in my research again, which was just me Googling and looking at Wikipedia, but there's different concepts within the philosophy or the thinking of nihilism, where it sort of rejects the constructs of existence, right? Nothing means anything. Knowledge, it's all based on things that really are pointless. They're meaningless. And for example, moral nihilism bugs me because it basically says that choices of right and wrong don't matter because nothing means anything, right? But we have a social contract. We live in a society where things do matter. And I know that this is talking about the broader picture of things. But I just think that when you use it as an excuse to just do whatever you want, and then it just seems like a cop-out. Like you're just trying to justify doing bad things without having to have any consequence because nothing matters, right? But so anyway, I just think it's a sad argument. So I wanted to have a fair argument on the opposite side. If all of these people feel like or if this select group of people feel like that nothing matters, surely there's a whole argument on the opposite side, right? Well, I didn't have a lot of luck in terms of that, because they were like, you can't really argue against it because it's true that to an extent things don't really matter, right? And I'm not qualified to get into this right now, especially this late in the podcast, but I just want to put that I am interested in learning more about this, and would love to hear some arguments against nihilism, or at least, I talked a little bit earlier about how there is meaning in art, and there's meaning in expression and in feeling. Look, thousands of years we've spent trying to figure things out, right? And we've learned so much, but we really don't know anything. We see the grains of sand, and then we see a desert, right? We see drops of water, and then we see the ocean. We see stars. We see the sun. We see a subatomic particle, and then we see the super vastness of space. And I guess it's easy to feel like insignificant and so small and meaningless in that vastness, or that in some of my strongest panic attacks come on the beach looking out at the ocean, right? And staring as far as I can into the horizon and feeling so tiny and so insignificant and so just unattached to the reality that I'm in. But for that exact reason, we are special. We do matter. Does that make sense? So maybe that's ego, but that signature of consciousness that we are, that senses that and knows that and is self-aware of their position within this crazy dynamic. I mean, just because we don't have the language to articulate how special that is, our relationships within the human dynamic is, the love and yeah, you can use scientific jargon to spell out a lot of things these days, right? But just because you can say all of the ingredients that go into a brownie doesn't mean that it doesn't taste fantastic when you eat it, right? I don't get to eat sweets right now, so that's what I'm thinking about. I guess the point to me is you have to allow a certain amount of magic in your life. Like, in a lot of ways, science to me is magic. You know what I mean? And that's just a layman talking to you about his understanding of these concepts. When I think of cell phones or recording devices or internet, or I think of the way all these different things work, I'm sure that there's intellectual people that could sit here and tell you exactly what components go into these devices that allow them to do the things that they do. But you have to allow a little bit to be like, wow. Be in awe of the things that we don't know. Don't be the guy that's always looking for the strings. Sometimes you just got to sit back and be like impressed by the world around you. And know that you don't know everything. We don't know. And part of that is freeing, because I like to think that the magic is in the things we don't know, right? That 2,000 years ago, a lot of the things that we have now would seem otherworldly to them that experienced them 2,000 years ago. If they were to sit there and be like, here, why don't you FaceTime somebody on this phone? And they're like, what? What are you talking about? Right? And in 2,000 years, if we're still hanging out, maybe we'll have a deeper understanding of and find greater meaning than we have right now. I don't think that we were meant to know everything straight away. I think that we were meant to learn things over time, perhaps. Or we know all that we should know in this moment, right? And I got to thinking about heavier things, but we'll get into that on another day. So I don't want to inundate everyone with too many things at once. So in a nutshell, let's sum it up. Just dye the beard, because it's really not that big of a deal. And it'll go away. I'll shave it off and it'll come back white as ever. And oh, by the way, on that quote, I ended up looking up the quote from Bob Hope, because I knew that he had said something, and his quote was, "I have seen what a laugh can do. It can transform almost unbearable tears into something bearable, even hopeful." That's pretty heavy. I think, not to mention the physiological effects that laughter has on our human bodies, it changes your whole being. You laugh and you smile, you feel lighter. If you haven't laughed today, that sucks, because we spent a whole hour together and I didn't make you laugh once. That was hacky. No, you should go out and laugh. Watch a comedy special or some old school slapstick humor like Laurel and Hardy or Three Stooges, whatever gets you off, man. Because right now I really need to laugh. I need to go watch some, I don't know, did I mention that I'm going to see Bill Burr for my birthday? I got tickets to go see Bill Burr. I'm going to go see him in December. Very excited about that. Anyway, that's really all I had for us today. As a reminder, please like and subscribe and do all the things that that we like to do to try to help grow the podcast. As always, we're doing it organically. I'm very pleased that there's all these trickle numbers at all these different the different platforms that I'm on. A few here, a few there, and it all adds up to being quite a few people, or in my opinion, a good amount of people getting to experience this podcast as I learn a little bit more, and I try to make it as entertaining as possible, or it's making me feel a lot better. Today I didn't feel like doing it. Not only was I tired, but just sometimes you don't feel like you're going to bring that energy or have things to say in whatever moment. But once you start getting it out of your mind and into the air, it just feels lighter, and you feel like a little bit more. Am I kicking the thing with my foot? If the camera's shaking, I'm sorry. Oh man, that's funny. But you know what? I want to talk about something. I was going to talk about this later, but very quickly. I remember I said in an earlier podcast, I reference older podcasts because I have to admit that a lot of my thoughts they come out in part because I want to express it, but sometimes they're not fully articulated or fully formed concepts or ideas. I talked briefly about okay. Before I get into that, very quickly, let me just say, we've had this ongoing fight with my Tascam DR40 recording with this fantastic microphone this Shure SM7B with the phantom power and the whole thing all hooked up and beautiful. For the past couple episodes, every single time I give it a shot and I try to record with this Tascam, I plug it up, I get everything going. The first time, I don't even remember what the problem was. Second time, it recorded in mono. The third time, I thought I had it fixed. It wasn't. The fourth time, here I am, and I got the double lines showing left and right. I have it going, I'm recording. And I look down, and sure enough, it stopped in the middle and said that the card was full. I'm just not meant to get quality sound. I'm just not meant to get a good quality sound. I'm destined to have the audio come through the camera. That wasn't even what I wanted to talk about. Whew. Okay. As I was saying, I talked in previous podcasts about being humble and finding situations that humble you, right? And the importance of being humble is because that's at the point where you can grow. That's at the point where you can say, I have room for improvement. Let's find ways of doing that, right? Well, recently I had a situation happen to me that did just that. And I'll quickly tell you, before you have to go, I understand that our time is up. But I'm probably going to edit a few things out. So if you've been with me this far, stick around. Let's close it out with a story. Okay. So in my job, we have training courses where it's a classroom setting and we talk about various things, about ways of improving ourselves in terms of leadership, in terms of management skills, etc., right? So I was in one such class this week, and the instructor said, I want you to think about this complex idea. And he gave what the topic was. And I would like you to write out a definition of what you think this means to you, and how, try to spell it out for me. And we had this large group of people and so take a couple minutes and we'll reconvene as a class. So wherever you hear ever scribbling and trying to write this very complex idea. So time's up. And he says, would anybody like to share their definition? So I don't know what happened, but when I was writing it out, I just felt the flow of words coming to me, right? And I was just spelling it out. And needless to say, I read my definition, and the instructor says, wow, I guess we don't have to teach the class anymore. That pretty much summed it up, right? Everybody laughed, and then he said, anybody else want to add to that definition? And I mean, talk about an ego stroke. Everybody in the class was like, nope, that pretty much summed it up, right? So I started really feeling myself and, kind of thinking about maybe I'm in the wrong occupation. Maybe I should be working for Webster's Dictionary over here. I know what words mean and stuff, right? But so when the instructor said, hey, Mike, why don't you come up here to the front of the class? In the back of my mind, I was like, oh, he wants me to come help teach the class now because he knows that I know my words, right? And he mentioned, stupid. He says, because your voice projects, and I want you to come up here. I need your loud voice. So I said, okay, all right. He said, all right, face the board. You're back to the class. I said, okay, let's go. And he had one of those drop-down projector screens, right? And he said, just follow the instructions on the board, right? I said, okay. And then the first one was, say silk 3 times. And I said, silk, silk, silk. I'm like, it's easy. Then I said, spell silk, silk 2 times. I spell it twice. Say silk 5 times. And I start thinking, oh, snap. This is a trick. And I said, I bet you. And I already I was like thinking I was savvy. I'm like, he's going to ask a question. And then I'm going to be like, whatever. Don't say silk. Don't be stupid, man. Come on. Focus, focus, focus. Say silk 3 times. Silk, silk, silk. Spell silk 2 times. Silk, silk. As fast as you can. What do cows drink? And I said, milk. I was so proud of myself for not saying silk. And I had such confidence in that moment. And everybody clapped and was laughing, clapping. And I thought they were clapping because I beat the contest. But it took me that long to realize that cows drink water and not milk. My wife tried to make me feel better, said baby cows drink milk. And I said, no, honey, that's not the question. They asked what 2 cows, fully grown, mooing cows drink. And I said milk. And everybody's like, it's okay, whatever. But there went 100% of my credibility. I mean, I just about felt dumb. And there was a couple other things in the class where they had this video go on, and like, it was supposed to test how perceptive you were. And there was a guy in a chicken suit that walked by, and somehow I didn't see the chicken suit. Anyway, it was enough to make me feel dumb. Quite the humbling experience. It doesn't take away from my fantastic definition, but you know, it put me in my place. It made me you know, it made me humble, and that's the point. We all have things to learn. We're all growing and getting better, and nobody's perfect. The second you start thinking you know it all, the second you start thinking that you got it all in control. And that's the life lesson, because I do like my control. I try so hard to do what I can, but we can't control it all, right? Please like and subscribe. Please comment. Please email me at lostlikemike@gmail.com. If you feel like being a part of the beta readers for the children's book, if you have children of your own, if your children, you or anybody else has dyslexia and want to be a part of the project, please reach out. I'm going to continue to do this, and thank you for joining me. Y'all be safe. Have a great week. I'll see you next Friday.